All right, let's get into the storyline surrounding the Islanders as they get ready to take on the Calgary Flames, and that goes down tonight. You hear him on the radio as the Islanders color commentator, and he's one of the hosts of the Talkin Isles podcast. Let's bring in my guy, Greg Picker, who we haven't seen in a long time. What's up, man? How you feeling?
Doing well here. Thanks for having me on. Always great to chat with you.
Yes, sir. All right, let's get into this because I know the little ones sleep right now. We got a little bit of time. Let's talk some Owls hockey, bro. Mike Reilly is going to undergo a procedure today to fix a heart issue that he's had, but it was discovered during his recovery from concussion. Can you kind of talk to us and fill us in with the Reilly situation?
Yeah, not often can you say suffering a concussion is a good thing. And of course, when it occurred in Buffalo a few weeks back, it did not look good. But here we are a few weeks later. And when you learn that news, well, it ended up being quite the blessing because it wouldn't have been discovered if he didn't go through the concussion and the protocol to try to see how he was recovering from that. So as Islanders president and general manager Lou Lamoriello spoke yesterday, shared that he will be out indefinitely, but 100% recovery is anticipated and even should return before the end of the season, but will be out for a few months as a result. But Mike Reilly, this is his second year with the Islanders. He's on the left side of the defense, and that left side of the defense has been decimated by injury over the past few weeks. So Islanders were hoping to get him back, but obviously much bigger picture situation now for him than just getting on the ice. We want to make sure the heart is in perfect condition. And so thankfully the procedure will occur, and assuming everything goes to plan as they anticipate, then you'll see him down the line in a few months.
Yeah, hopefully the heart and the head get back to 100% to get him back out there. But how many times do we ever say something good came out of concussion? Truly remarkable story as we follow his journey to get back on the ice. A guy that's been cleared to return to the ice is Alex Romanov. Do you think he plays tonight?
Well, based off the way that the Islanders practiced in Calgary yesterday, you'd have to anticipate yes, because he skated alongside Noah Dobson, who was a regular in the lineup during the way that they put out the pairs yesterday on defense. So he was called a game time decision for tonight, which is a 9 o'clock Eastern time start in Calgary, but you typically know a day in advance who's going to play based off the way that the matchups go for pairs and lines at forward. And the fact that Romanov was out there with Noah Dobson, you have to think it's a good chance that he's going to be out there. And again, there are 3 regular left-handed defensemen that have been out for a few weeks now for the Islanders, and Alex will be the first one back, along with Adam Pelech, who's still out, and as we talked about, Mike Reilly, who's out for a little bit of a longer-term situation.
Good news as they get some help back on the defensive front. But my man Isaiah George was the one that had to step in with Alex out. I guess, how's he look, man? And you think he's played well enough to not return to the AHL?
Well, he was a 2022 fourth-round pick. And for a defenseman to come up in just a couple of years and make an impact is pretty rare for that late of a pick, especially as a defenseman. When he came up a few weeks ago, again, because of all the injuries to the left side of the defense, by his second game, he was playing over 24 minutes. And that just shows the trust that the coaching staff has in him, which, again, pretty rare. It had been since 2018 where an Islander rookie defenseman had played that much time on ice in a game. He was north of 20 in game number 3. Now we're 6 games in, and he's been closer to the 18, 19-minute mark. So the time on ice has been taken back just a little bit. But right now, let's ignore the Romanov situation, the way that the Islanders have been playing, it was only 2 left-handed defensemen, 4 right-handed defensemen. You like to have that 3-and-3 approach. As the Islanders get healthier, I don't know if he's going to be in there because you don't want him to be the number 7 defenseman and sitting out. You'd rather if there's no spot for him in the top 6, you'd rather have him in Bridgeport playing every night, where you could have a guy like Dennis Trelowski, who's been the number 7 defenseman since the start of the season. He's a little bit more veteran. He doesn't have to play every night. You're not going to look to send him down to get more seasoning in Bridgeport. He's the guy that can kind of come in and out when needed. So we'll see. Again, it all really depends on the health of the entire blue line, whether or not Isaiah George is up for the rest of the season or if it's just a few more weeks before he goes back to Bridgeport and gets more seasoning. But 6 games in, yet to record a point, but he's been close quite a few times to even scoring a goal. I think it was game number 2 for him on home ice in overtime against Pittsburgh. It made a move down the ice and almost went end to end to score and would have brought the roof off the UBS Arena. Didn't end up finishing it in the end. But that would have been quite the way to score his first goal. He's still looking for that. And who knows, maybe he'll get it tonight in Calgary.
How do players respond to that information or to the news of, hey, you've been playing well, you've got a lot of on ice time, but we're going to send you back to the AHL because it's just deep on the defense? Like, how do players respond to that? Is that like a blessing in disguise type thing because you're going to play more, but or would they rather kind of like sit the bench in the NHL?
Listen, you always would rather be in the National Hockey League than the American Hockey League, but if you're a guy like him, just 2 years ago was when he was drafted, 4th round defenseman. He probably didn't necessarily expect to be in the NHL this year, especially because he never played professional hockey until this year. He was still in the junior ranks in the Ontario Hockey League just this past season. He only played 4 games at Bridgeport before he was called up and made his NHL debut this year. So he'd rather be in the NHL, but I think when the entire defense gets healthier than they are right now, and you might have 3 left-handed defensemen that you can play, guy like him probably understands, okay, time to go back to Bridgeport, work on whatever the coaching staff feels I need to work on to become that full-time NHLer in the not too distant future.
And you're still going there knowing that the next man up mentality, anyone does go down in the future, he'd be the one to get called up. So thanks for that was more for me than everybody else. So I just wanted to know how that dynamic worked. All right, let's talk about the West Coast trip. 1-2 on the trip so far. Let's say they win tonight. What grade would you give them? And if they lose tonight, what grade would you give them for the entire road trip so far?
So it's a little ironic because so far on this trip, the Islanders have picked up 3 of a possible 6 points, and you can pick up 10 possibly overall because it's a 5-game trip. Yes, 4 games out west, and then on the backswing east, they hit Detroit. Coming back, well, they'll play at UBS Arena on Saturday in the first game back home. But the first 2 games were the most difficult, you'd say, on paper. You play Edmonton in Edmonton, Vancouver in Vancouver, and the Islanders lost in overtime at Edmonton, so they pick up 1 point there. Won maybe their best 60-minute effort of the season in Vancouver, picking up 2 points there. And then the last 3 games of the trip are against non-playoff teams from a year ago in Seattle, Calgary, and Detroit. So the way things started, all of a sudden you're saying there's no way the Islanders can come back home not above NHL 500 on the trip, and that would be picking up at least 6 of a possible 10 points. Now, after they lost in regulation in Seattle, which was a great game, but they fell 3-2 with the game-winning goal coming with just over 3 minutes left. It'd be a huge disappointment to not pick up at least 6 or 7 points, and they'd have to win the last 2 games of this trip in Calgary this evening and then in Detroit on Thursday to pick up at least the 7 points out of 10. If they can do that, 3-1-1, you have to call it an A- type of trip. Okay. If they can't do that, and let's say if they lose these next 2 in regulation after winning game number 2 and picking up that overtime point in game number 1, it's probably a C-. So we'll see how these next 2 games go, but it could go either way. Yeah. You could go 3-1-1 and be very happy, or if you end up 1-3-1, you're really disappointed.
Yeah, I'm waiting for this team to go on some sort of run, put together some sort of consistent win, stack some wins together, and really kind of separate themselves from the pack. Greg, appreciate you as always, man. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, on the Islanders radio network, the Isles plus UBS Arena app is where you can hear every single radio broadcast. So that's best spot to tune into us these days. And Talkin Isles, thanks for that shout out as well. We have over 60 episodes deep now where we've talked to plenty of Islanders alumni, whether they're players, which the majority of our episodes have been, and fellow broadcasters that have worked for the team. And our most recent episode, Kyle Oposo, who was a longtime Islander from 2008 to 2016, moved on, but did win the Stanley Cup as he retired this past year. So that was a really fun chat, getting to catch up with the guy they call Okie.
All right, man. Love what you guys are doing with the Talkin Isles podcast. Appreciate you jumping on with us, man. And you've been relieved of Talkin Isles. Now back to dad duty, sir.
Thank you.